Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the webinar on doing funded PhD in Europe through the Marie Curie Actions, brought to you by EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand. First of all, please allow me to introduce to you two esteemed guest speakers for today. We have with us Madison Ainsworth, who is currently a PhD candidate at the University Medical Center, Utrecht in the Netherlands. She will give you tips and advice from a MSCA COFUND Fellows perspective. We also have with us Jenny Lind Elmaco, who is the regional coordinator for EURAXESS ASEAN and is also an MSCA ITN Fellow, and hence she will share her experience as an ITN Fellow with us. And I'm Nishant, Shandilya, regional coordinator for EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand. Before we begin, a few quick pointers for all of you. I'd like to encourage you to please use the chat function in the interface to ask any questions that you might have while our speakers are presenting. Once all the three presentations are done, we will come back to take your questions. And please note that the recording and the slides of the session will be provided to you. The recording will not include the Q&A, and hence I'll recommend you to stay for the entire duration if you want our experts to address the common queries that applicants have. Perfect. So let's begin. And what I'll do is I'll start sharing my screen. Do let me know if you can see it. Is it visible now? Perfect. So let's start on what PhD opportunities through Marie Curie Actions are there. So first and foremost, how does Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action take its name from? It takes its name from the famous Marie Skłodowska-Curie, a Polish and naturalized French physicist and chemist who conducted pioneering research on radioactivity. So what you need to understand is first 4 or 5 slides is a background for you to understand better the Marie Curie Action itself. So currently, the vacancies that you'll be looking at Marie Curie would be under Horizon 2020. So what is Horizon 2020? It is the EU's framework for research and innovation program, right? So it had a budget of around 80 billion euros for a period of 2014 till 2020. Within Horizon 2020, one of the program is Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action, which is MSCA. Particularly for MSCA under Horizon 2020, there were around 65,000 plus researchers that were being funded, which included 25,000 PhD candidates. So you can look at this. On an average, around 3,500 PhD candidates were funded per year. One interesting aspect is 37% of these researchers were from outside the EU. And as you can see under Horizon 2020, Marie Curie was of a budget of 6.2 billion euros. Since Horizon 2020 will come to an end, has already come to an end in 2020, its successor is Horizon Europe, which starts on 2021 and will go till 2027. And under this, of course, the overall budget is around 95.5 billion euros. Marie Curie particularly has a budget of 6.6 billion euros. So slight increase compared to under Horizon 20. Why is it important? It's important because you can see the scale of possibilities and the possibilities of PhD opportunities under this. So we'll look at 2 doctoral programs and networks under Marie Curie Action. The first one is the Innovative Training Networks, which has been renamed to Doctoral Networks under Horizon Europe, and then the Marie Curie COFUND programs, right? But please understand one thing very clearly. When you apply, you will not be applying to an ITN or a COFUND. You will be applying to vacancies that will come out of ITN and COFUND. We will look at this in later slides in better details. So just to give you very brief background, do not worry much on this because this is still background information. So what is an ITN, Innovative Training Network? So these are interdisciplinary and international doctoral training network. These are multi-beneficiary actions. So what happens is different sector organizations like universities, public and private research centers come together, they form a consortium, they apply for these ITNs, and when these ITNs are funded, that is when they come out with these vacancies for PhD candidates for dedicated to training early stage researchers to become leaders, right? That is ITN. So what is COFUND? It is mono-beneficiary compared to ITN, which was multi-beneficiary, it is mono-beneficiary, which means one legal entity will apply for a new or an existing scheme for doctoral and postdoctoral fellowship. So be aware, for ITN is completely doctoral training. COFUND is for doctoral and postdoctoral fellowship. So for you, the one that is of relevance is doctoral training only. So under COFUND, both early stage researchers and experienced researchers are supported. Why we need to understand this is because you need to know there are two different things that we can find vacancies for doctoral training, right? So now let's move on to the more interesting aspect. What is unique about Marie Curie Actions? I'm showing you a photograph, which is an illustration for an ITN. And the dividing factor is where you need to understand the functioning clearly. So the ones that are above the black dotted line is something that happens in the background, does not concern you. So consortium of partners come together, they put forward a proposal. If it is successful, then the commission gives them grant. Once the grants are received, then these beneficiaries make out call for PhD candidate. This is where you come into on stage 4. When the call for PhD candidates come out, that is where you apply, then the selection and recruitment process happens, then you receive the job contract, right? So applying to an MSCA PhD position is very much like applying for a job role, which our fellows will also endorse later on. So what happens is projects have already been set by the beneficiaries and the partner organizations. All you have to do is apply to the one that interests you. Another interesting thing about this MSCA PhD opportunities is that these are for multidisciplinary training. So what does that mean? It means that a PhD candidate will establish a career development plan along with his or her supervisor. This should include setting out the research objective, career objective, training needs, and also career plan, which includes planned publication and participation in conferences. Integral part of this is networking activities. You get to attend conferences, networking meetings. You have meetings with external experts within your field. You attend conferences and other collaboration with projects or research groups. So these are quite unique things about MSCA PhD program. Now you'll have a pertinent question: am I eligible for this? So there is a very general rule for eligibility. The first thing that is applicable is you must, at the date of recruitment, be within the first 4 years of your research career. And this is full-time equivalent experience. What does that mean? It means that from the date of measurement, when you obtain the degree that entitles you to embark on a doctorate, and this could be the degree which was obtained in your country or outside your country. This is what full-time research experience means. That is the first eligibility criteria. The second one is there is no nationality restrictions, which you are already aware. This is the general rule, but there is a specific rule, that is mobility rule. You must not be residing or carrying your main activity or work or study in the country where you have been recruited for more than 12 months in the last 3 years. What does that mean? So for instance, if you want to go to, for instance, Spain, you should not have stayed for 12 months in Spain in the last 3 years if you want to go to Spain as a PhD destination. That is a specific mobility rule that you have. Now, where in Europe can you find these opportunities? The mobility can be to 27 EU member states or the 16 associated countries. Of course, you'll receive this slide and you will have more understanding of where you can choose from. And generally, I get asked this question: can I apply with an institution in the UK? The answer is yes, because UK is already eligible. Even under Horizon 2020 till 2020, they were eligible. Under Horizon Europe, there are already talks, and it is already confirmed that UK will be sort of an associated country to Horizon Europe. So you can apply with an institution in the UK. Now, what about funding? The next two slides are a little bit complicated, so I'll want you to look at this in a little bit of detail. So let's look at the ITN first. What does the funding cover? Mind you, whatever you are looking at is for vacancies that are coming out for under Horizon 2020, because the calls are already out. All the Horizon 2020 has ended. The projects have still opened vacancies. So whatever you see this year, whatever vacancies this year are under Horizon 2020. Why is it important? Because the funding amount will vary under Horizon Europe. So let's look at the ones that are currently prevalent. You'll see that early stage researchers will receive a living allowance of 3,270 euros. And there is an asterisk which says that country correlation coefficient will be adjusted for cost of living in that particular country. Then you will get mobility allowance per month of 600 euros, family allowance 500 euros per month. And this is regardless of if your family is with you or not. Just what you need to make sure is you have proper documentation to show that you have a family. These are early stage researcher allowances. Then there are these institutional funding that goes to the institution that hosts you. This includes research, training, and networking cost of 1,800 euros per month, and management and indirect cost of 1,200 euros. So what does, for instance, if you want to travel to a conference, that you can request from the research, training, and networking cost from your institution. That will come out of 1,800 euros. It will not come out of the early stage researcher funding that you have. Of course, what you need to understand is the funding is given to the host institution. The host institution will then pass it on to you, right? What one important thing for ITN is that under MSCA funding, the maximum period that a researcher can be supported is 36 months. So there is no exception to this rule. So for instance, if it will take more than 36 months for your doctoral thesis, you may need to look for additional financial support, right? This is something that is important for ITN. Then we look at the co-fund. It is slightly different because under co-fund, what happens is participating organizations, means the beneficiary, receives a fixed amount for each researcher as a contribution to researchers' remuneration and management of the program. They must complement this contribution with their own sources to achieve minimum living allowance to be given to each researcher. And if you look at this, the EU will contribute 1,935 euros, and as a minimum amount, 774 euro has to be provided by the institution who has the co-fund project. So a total euro of minimum 2,709 is something that a researcher will receive for family, for living and mobility allowance. But mind you, this is the minimum 2,709. In addition to this cost, researcher unit cost, the institution that will host you will also receive 325 euro per month, and this will be allocated towards the management of the program. If you look at ITN, there were allowances, for example, for family allowance, research, training, and networking costs. This is something that under co-fund will have to go through another source of funding. This is something that the beneficiary and the co-fund vacancy announcers will have to look at, such as the ESIF. So you will not have that much of clarity in terms of funding compared to ITN. Of course, this is also something that will change under Horizon Europe. There will be slight increase in the funding, but this is something that will be applicable for 2022. The 2021 vacancies all will have funding rates as shown in ITN and for co-fund under this. Now, let's look at the documents that you need to provide. On a very basic way, you need to prove that you are qualified to undertake a PhD, any relevant degree, master's degree or equivalent qualification. Then you need to have a transcript of your grades, a CV detailing your prior experience of project and publications, if any, a personal statement detailing why you are suitable for the project, and also two contact details of or letter of recommendation or referees. And of course, in some circumstances, you will need to provide certificate of language proficiency. And there could be some particular eligibility that will be provided by the project themselves, which you might have to meet. But in general, these are the documents you need to provide. Okay, so now, where do you find these open positions? This is where you can look at all the PhD ITN vacancies or the COFUND vacancies are advertised through EURAXESS portal. So if you look at this, on the EURAXESS portal, there is something called Find Jobs. When you click on the Find Jobs, you'll have the option to search for the jobs. And under European Research Program, you can see Horizon 2020 Marie Curie Action, Horizon 2020 Marie Curie COFUND Action. When you click to those, it will take you to this. If I click now, it will show me search results of 289. It does not mean there are 289 vacancies. It means that there are 289 search results. A search result might have multiple vacancies, could be having 5 vacancies, could be having 10 vacancies. So you can look at the current number of vacancies would be much larger than 289. The 289 are the number of posts. So what you can do is you can filter by the posts, deadlines. You can look at keywords. You can type what is of relevance to you. For example, here you can see that the research field is biological science, or you can just type there. If you want to look at location like Italy, if you want to go to Italy, you can just search for Italy, and then you will see what all PhD opportunities are there in that particular country, right? So now, how do you remain informed? Because these vacancies come out at different times, you need to understand that you can find these on EURAXESS. So what is EURAXESS? It's a pan-European initiative which is backed by the European Research Area. What does that mean? It's backed by the member states and the associated countries. The idea of EURAXESS is to support researcher mobility and career development. Of course, the overarching aim is to enhance scientific collaboration between Europe and rest of the world. All the services that EURAXESS provides are free of charge. To understand EURAXESS in plain words, there are 4 pillars to EURAXESS. The first pillar is jobs and funding. So if you are looking for research jobs, there is a segment called jobs and funding. Under that, if you look at today's number, there are 13,445 research job positions available. And if you are looking for funding opportunities, there are currently 146 such funding opportunities. Then the second pillar is information and assistance. For instance, if you are planning to go to Germany to do your PhD, right? Then you will want to know country-specific information. Where do you find? There are national portals that give you this specific information. So there is a EURAXESS Germany where you can go and find this country-specific information. Similarly, there are 600 EURAXESS support centers which help researchers free of charge. For instance, if you want visa-related assistance, you need accommodation-related assistance. These are centers that provide you help with these, and these are all free of charge. Then the third part is partnering. Currently, there are 116,365 registered members and 18,800 registered organizations and universities. So if you are looking for a host institution, or if you are looking for somebody to partner in your project, you can also look at these registered members. The last part is EURAXESS Worldwide. This is where we come into. If you look at this, we are present across the globe, US and Canada, Latin America and Caribbean, India, China, Japan, Korea, ASEAN, and the most nascent hub is Australia and New Zealand. Australia and New Zealand have began its operation last year in January, and we have been trying to bring these webinars, and what we generally do is we try to post one vacancy or one opportunity, be it PhD or postdoctoral opportunity, in the weekday once, so that you do not get overburdened. And all these vacancies or opportunities are also circulated on our social media platforms. Just to give you a very brief, this is my last slide, brief snapshot of EURAXESS activity for Q2. So we are looking at doing funded PhD in Europe, April 15. Something that would be of interest is PhD and postdoc opportunity in the EU. Here, we will organize series of this webinar wherein there will be member state specific PhD and postdoc opportunity that we will discuss. The first one is tentatively scheduled for June 10, right? So I'll leave this presentation with my email address, and I'll encourage you to sign up for the free membership. So it's a free membership, and I'll also encourage you to choose whichever social media platform you prefer, since all of you are on your laptop or your phone. Just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, so that you keep yourself informed. As I mentioned, we do, and we have a philosophy not to overburden you. So you'll only receive pertinent information, pertinent vacancies, right? So I think this is enough for me to give you a background of Marie Curie related PhD funding opportunities. Now we will move on to more interesting aspects of the webinar, and I'll now pass on the floor to Madison, and she will be sharing her experience as a MSCA COFUND fellow. Over to you, Madison.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, my name is Madison Ainsworth. I'm originally from Brisbane, Australia, grew up all my life there and recently moved to Europe 3 years ago for my research experiences. So I'd just like to share with you a little bit of where I came from and where I am now and what opportunities I've been given through the Marie Curie actions. So just for a little bit of background, I did a Bachelor in Biomedical Sciences at the Queensland University of Technology. Through this experience, I really developed a love for anatomical sciences, and I thought maybe medicine was my path, but in my final year, I got to do some research projects, which really led me to discovering a love for biofabrication. So I signed up for the International Dual Masters in Biofabrication, which was an excellent opportunity for me because it actually gave me the chance to travel and do an internship at the University of Utrecht, which was between 2018 to 2019. Here, I really had so much fun in the 2 years of my master's that I decided I wasn't quite done with research yet, and I was starting to look for PhD opportunities. And halfway through my internship in Utrecht, there was a new COFUND project that came out from the Marie Curie Actions called Rescue. I signed up for this and was lucky enough to get a position for a PhD in the program of regenerative medicine at the University Medical Centre in Utrecht, which is actually the institution that hosts the COFUND project called Rescue that I'm a part of. I'm about halfway through that PhD at the moment. I just entered my 3rd year. So in the Netherlands, PhDs typically go for 4 years. So I'm still within my limits there, and hopefully I will finish within those 4 years. And just a little bit about my Marie Curie COFUND project. So it's called Rescue, which roughly translates to regenerative medicine and stem cells in Utrecht. There were 30 PhD positions, of course, international, all of them. And the real goals of this project, or why the University Medical Centre put forward this project, was to really increase the international profile in Utrecht, but also to strengthen the local network for regenerative medicine. So all of the projects that were put forward were all loosely linked to regenerative medicine and stem cells in some way, spanning across all of the different departments within the University Medical Centre, and also in collaboration with our local institutes, also the University of Utrecht and the Utrecht Institute, which works very closely with the University Medical Centre. I just made this little infographic to show a bit of a distribution of where all of the candidates come from over the world, and we're lucky enough to have 2 Australians, unfortunately no New Zealanders. And weirdly enough, we have an amazing amount of Italians, which is really nice for international dinners, of course. It's my favorite cuisine. But I think 2 out of 30 coming from Australia is already quite nice considering how far away it is. I will just share a little bit about my experiences with the application process. I think we already had a really nice summary about all of the nitty-gritty details, but I'll just try and touch on them briefly. As mentioned before, it's really a job application. At least in the Netherlands, PhD, you're not seen as a student, you are an employee. So you can really see that when you apply for this kind of position, it's really like applying for a job. As you would with the CV and the motivation letter. We had 2 interview rounds. These were done remotely. Of course, everyone was not in the Netherlands at the time of starting. That was one of the prerequisites. Luckily, because I did my internship in Utrecht, it only lasted for 10 months. So that put me under the threshold of 1 year in the previous 3 years. In terms of the recruitment requirements or information, you need to show that you have a master's degree. And actually this was pointed out to me recently by my project manager, so the actual controller within the University Medical Centre that looks after the Horizon 2020 grants. She told me that this actually can also be an international equivalent. So for in the UK, it's quite similar to Australia in that if you want to do a PhD, it's not necessary to have a master's degree if you did an honours year after your bachelor. So that was really interesting. And I thought I would just mention that here because I wasn't aware of that until last week. I remember in my bachelor trying to decide, okay, do I do a master? Do I do an honours year? And I chose the master because it also had a very enticing approach of being able to go abroad for an internship, but also because I knew that it would be internationally recognised everywhere. So for the Netherlands, it's much more common that you do need that master degree, but apparently there are some also exceptions made if you can really sell your case within your motivation letter, be really upfront about the fact that this is actually research experience that you have, also independent research. Yeah, anyway. Moving on, of course, you need to have a background that's somehow related to the research topic. It's not that you're changing drastically into a new field, or at least an affinity is possible, not necessarily that your previous research experience is identical, because of course that's very rarely the case. As mentioned before, you cannot have previously worked in the country for more than 12 months in the previous 3 years. As part of the COFUND project, we also had the requirement to do 2 secondments during our project, which is really exciting actually. This means that you have the opportunity to do 3 to 6 months of research in another lab. And actually this was really driven to be abroad. So you were only allowed to do 1 of these within the Netherlands if you wanted. But the idea was that you would travel to 2 different labs in different countries. This was also possible outside of Europe to do this. So I think this is a really nice added benefit, but of course it is something that you need to consider if you're moving with family, because this is another move within already 1 move. And of course you need to be the early stage researcher and not have a PhD already. This was also mentioned a little bit before about the visa and travel, but I just wanted to maybe add a little note here, because again, you're really an employee. The visa and these sort of administrative tasks that you need to carry out before you can move to a new country is actually really well facilitated by your host institution. I think that they all have departments that really can help with these steps. And in my case, I got a checklist of documents to send, and then everything was magically done behind the scenes, and I was able to come over within the timeframe that was originally discussed. But on that note, it is really important to remember that these things do take time. I think from beginning of the application to when I actually started was at least 6 months. So this is not something that happens, I think, with a really quick turnaround, and visas take time, of course. So just something to keep in mind. Maybe just a little background if people haven't heard of Utrecht before, or the Netherlands, which was actually my case before I signed up for my master degree. The Netherlands is actually really nicely situated in the middle of Europe. It's a great base for travel, as you can probably imagine. You've probably all heard of Amsterdam before. And that's really the center. So Utrecht is just about half an hour southeast of Amsterdam. And I guess my experience of Utrecht over the last 3 years has been a lot of cycling. It's actually much harder to get around by car in Utrecht. So I have been cycling every day since I got here. I think it's a nice part of the fitness. You also have a lot of experiences to integrate into the culture. This is a picture taken from King's Day 2 years ago. So when you celebrate the King's birthday in the Netherlands, everyone is on the boats and the canals wearing orange or the colours of the flag. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, again, on the canals, it's you either get around by bike or by boat. But what does it really look like to be a Marie Curie Fellow in Europe? This is really my experiences. So this is a picture actually of all of the Rescue Co-Fund candidates from my project. As I said before, you are an employee, not a student. So I think there are some pros and cons that come with this. Obviously, there's quite an attractive salary that comes with being a Marie Curie Fellow, at least in comparison to Australia or my experiences in Australia. Having a contract also helps a lot with finding a housing, and yeah, you can have a few more benefits that come with that, I think, depending on the country. You also have to pay taxes, of course, and in a lot of European countries, this can be quite high, but I still think it works out on the benefit side, at least in my case. But also as an employee, you need to pay insurances, and you also get paid a pension. I think this is just something to keep in mind when you apply what comes out afterwards. You also have quite a high supervision responsibility. I'm only just in the beginning of my third year, and I've supervised already 4 students doing their master's research projects. You can also have bachelor student supervision responsibility. It's just not been my case. You also have a lot of opportunities for publication, which is a lot more common in Europe than in Australia. We have some sort of unwritten expectations about how many publications we will put out during our PhD, but it is not a hard rule, but it's definitely promoted. So that's a bit of a pro and a con, I would say, in the PhD level. There's a lot of access to grants and funding. It's something that I really noticed coming to Europe. There's just a lot more small also grants being funded multiple times per year, lots of different European sources, but also national. And this just leads to also more opportunities and freedom within your research. You may have an opportunity to learn a new language. I think I'm really lucky in the Netherlands that I don't have to rely on the Dutch language, but it has been fun to learn a little bit here and there. Also, it's a really international environment. If I look at my research institute, I think we have almost half of the occupants are from another country other than the Netherlands. So this is quite an exciting environment to work in, I think, and I've learned a lot from a lot of different cultures. And something I just thought was important to note is that there are a lot of different specialties in a lot of different countries in Europe. And this was really important for me because my field of biofabrication is quite an early field. It's very immature in its impact, but there's a really big hub for this field in Utrecht. So this was a great place for me to be. So I think with different specialties occurring in different countries, it's just something to think about when you are looking and filtering through those opportunities online. You also have excellent opportunities for networking and collaboration. I just included some pictures here of my research group along with another research group from Ireland. And we have a very close collaboration between our groups. And it was just very normal for us to get together all together in one country, have a few days of scientific meetings, discussions, planning of new projects, and also some social aspects, of course, to connect a little bit better. And I found this really surprising, actually, because it was such a big movement of people for just 2 days, but just to have some really nice discussions about science and where we're moving together as 2 different groups and how we can move together. So yeah, I found this really nice. We also have quite some opportunities to travel for work in Europe with everything being so close. So here are a few conferences that I've been able to travel to and share my research so far. I actually also got the opportunity to travel home. I went to the University of Sydney in the first year of my PhD to work on a project in collaboration with them, which was really nice, and also a funded trip home. You can't complain about that. But also within other countries, a lot of my colleagues have had the opportunity to go to Switzerland, Germany. So I think there are a lot of possibilities there. Also, summer schools are something that's really popular in Europe. So these really hyper-focused, week-long courses, essentially. So I was lucky enough to go to Heidelberg for a summer school in biomechanics. Maybe on a more individual level, I really can't stress enough the personal growth that I've been able to experience so far. I mean, it's one thing moving to another country with your family, but when you're by yourself in a completely new environment, you're also leveling up your education and your work experience. I really can't stress it enough how much personal growth I've experienced, which has just been amazing, honestly. And of course, some travel for leisure on the side. Of course, pre-COVID, I tried to squeeze in as much as I could, as you can see here. But I think that's a really attractive aspect of being able to work in Europe as well. And I just rounded out some of my top advantages of doing a PhD in Europe, and this is sort of my own perception in comparison to an Australian PhD. So one, you very quickly develop an international network just by moving to a new continent. By going to conferences, you see people that have come from all over the continent. And this is important for if you're looking for a future job in Europe, or even just to have those connections for future collaborations if you decide to go back to Australia. I think this is really one of the most exciting advantages. Secondly, you gain a lot of independence as a researcher. I work completely unmonitored most of the time. I have two fantastic supervisors who I meet with on a monthly or so basis to discuss any issues I have. I really have a lot of independence in my research. Work-life balance is a really interesting one. I always felt in Australia that I had some pressure to be the last one to leave the lab, but in the Netherlands, if you're in the lab at 5, you are the odd one out. Everyone is gone. And it's really promoted to enjoy that work-life balance and be more efficient in your normal working hours. In my case, I feel like I will have more experience entering the workforce, mostly because in the Netherlands, it's a 4-year program rather than a 3-year program. And this is just simply an extra year of experience while you're still in a bit more of a safe environment where you still have people to turn to really close to you to ask for assistance in different things. You also can build quite a comprehensive CV, as I mentioned before, about the publication opportunity, because you're really pushed towards this path. You can often finish your PhD with quite a comprehensive list. I think between 3 and 6 is sort of the range in the Netherlands for how many publications you would get during your PhD. This is, of course, really dependent on the project as well. And also management and teaching experience. As I mentioned, I already had some supervision of master's students. I also participated in some master course organization, and these opportunities really pop up everywhere. And it's something that I've really pulled myself into, I think, in a lot of the cases. And just some final hints and tips, I suppose. I really think social networking is so important in this field, at least even in my research group. As soon as a job opening comes out, I normally find out about it on my colleagues' Twitter before we even have the chance to discuss it in person. So it really pops up there immediately. Of course, the EURAXESS site is a wealth of knowledge as well. I think just having some determination and persistence, and also with the patience that comes with that, is really important. As you've heard, there are a lot of opportunities out there. And to the next point, I feel like you should not settle. This is your PhD. It's really setting you up for the next stage in your career. And if it doesn't feel like the right project, then I would really suggest to keep looking or apply for the experience. But really think about, this is a potentially 3 to 4 years. And you have to be motivated for it, I think, because a lot of it is really independence in this research position. So you need to have the self-motivation for it as well. And just the last note of the cultural expectations. I was already gearing myself up ready for the example, the bluntness of the Dutch. They're very straightforward people, and it's a little different than Australians. But I've really warmed up to it, and I would also consider myself to be quite straightforward now in my interactions. But of course, this is really different depending on each country. So it's well worth your time to do some research on what you'll experience and try and connect with people who have been in these positions before, so you can get there personal opinion. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madison. I think our audience gained a lot of insights, and it was really vivid to see how your professional and personal life was so well balanced. I think there are lots and lots of opportunities. And of course, for everyone who has been putting the questions, please continue doing so. And at the end of Jenny's presentation, we'll come back and take your questions. And some of the questions might be already answered during these presentations. So of course, continue writing them so that we are aware of what's going on in your mind. So over to you, Jenny, on your experience on MSCA ITN.
Thank you, Nishant. It was really a pleasure to listen to Madison's experience because we are not actually we were not very far from each other, although we have like some years apart. I was working in Munster, at the University of Munster. So same thing, cycling every day, not really taking the bus so much, but like walking or doing cycling. So it's really nice to listen to that. It brings back so many memories. I wanted to share to you my screen. Please tell me if you can see that. Awesome. All right. So Madison was in the natural sciences. I'm going to bring you a little bit to the social sciences, although it dabbles a lot also with tech. I titled my presentation, so it's going to be short because I'd like to really listen to and try to answer as many questions as I can, and I'm sure Nishant would like to do the same. So my presentation is really on the science, the research, and the social impact of the Marie Curie Fellowship. So a little bit about me, my early days, I define it with 3 C's: coffee, chocolate, and the Carabao, or the water buffalo, depending where you are from. And this is what greets me on a daily basis. I actually live in the city, but it's like we're very near the farm as well. My grandparents were farmers, but my parents are, career people. So we're very in the city, and this is what we see every day. Very similar to a lot of places in Australia. Interesting tidbit: I was supposed to study in Australia. I was supposed to take up law, but as with everything else in life, life happens, and you get carried away elsewhere. So I discovered Europe, early on actually when I did my master's. So I did my undergraduate in the Philippines and also in Japan, and then I left for my first master's in Austria, in the University of Innsbruck. After that, my very first job was at the Office of the President of the Republic of the Philippines. I was with Her Excellency Gloria Bacapagal Arroyo. She hired me immediately after graduation, after seeing me in a student conference or something. We got to talk, and I told her I wanted to change the world, and she said, "Yes, I want that." And then there I was in her office. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I heard about the Erasmus Mundus program, and I did my Erasmus Mundus Global Studies program in the University of Vienna and the University of Leipzig. And I was after that I was already working in several research programs in Germany and also a little bit in Austria. I also worked for Frauen ohne Grenzen, Women Without Borders in Austria. So I was really like in between, humanitarian work, but also research work, and also I dabbled into teaching. And then there was this invitation to do SP Build, which is this is an ITN MSCA ITN Sustainable Peace Building coordinated by the University of Deusto in Spain, and that brought me to the University of Bradford in the UK. So it was a very interesting program because there were 43 young researchers from 26 nationalities. So it was an amazing group. So I learned a lot from the people who were there. And the great thing about the MSCA ITN is that you're not only limited to your program, you actually get to also do summer schools, as Madison was saying. So I did a summer school in Ljubljana in Slovenia. and another summer school also in Brussels in Belgium, and really expanded my network because of that. So, and I, of course, you also extend your networks with with the many people that you meet also along the way through the cohort and also outside the cohort. But essentially, it's the same thing as well with Madison. It was a job. So I was hired as a research fellow at the University of Bradford. And so, I worked with the Peace Studies program of the University of Bradford and was also very active in doing research, published articles during my time there, required actually to publish articles during my time there, but also tried to develop soft skills. So a while ago, Nishant and Madison were telling everyone about, the finances that you get, but the support also is non-financial because you also, really sharpen your skills as a researcher, as a scientist. So apart from the summer schools, you are invited to present your papers at the same time. You have trainings in science communication, in IP, intellectual property rights. You're also invited to sharpen your skills in debate, in presenting yourself, and many other things. Intersections with the work that you do. So in my case, because of the MSCA ITN, during my ITN, and even beyond that, I was a part of different research groups. So I got to work with VU, which is the Vienna University of Economics and Business, and this was on nonprofit management. At the same time, I was part of Garnet, which is on interregionalism and EU, Asia, European relations. And until now, and this is the great thing as well with the fellowship, because even after I finished my program, you get to still continue having these partnerships and networks, with a lot of people. And for example, with Garnet, my friends, people that I met in this program, they are now, heads of directors of international relations offices. They are heads of H2020 programs. They are principal investigators of projects. So I think a month ago, I just finished an article, a chapter in a book of a friend of mine. I wrote about migration during the time of COVID with a specific focus on nurses, frontliners, medical frontliners, nurses during this time. And that was because of someone I met through Garnet because of an invitation sent to the MSCA ITN cohort. And because we continue to be in touch, you have this vast network that you can really build on. At the same time, as I said, I was part of the European Research Center for Information Systems, and that also expanded a little bit the work that I do. So I'm supposedly, a social scientist, but you can see in the next slides what I did, even after the ITN. And I also became a part of Universidad Complutense. I was a visiting professor there. And also part of the European Consortium for Political Research. So this is what, the ITN does. It really just, you have like several spokes in the beginning, and then it goes like so many spokes of the wheel. But then it is really because of that core, of that MSCA experience. So for me, like I went to Harvard, presented, with this program on women because of an IVLP, so it extended to the United States, and a project of the State Department in the United States. I did a TED talk. Every year, I try to go to the United Nations every March, just to keep abreast with with peace and security issues, specific also to gender and women's empowerment. And I've spoken several times at the sessions of at the UN headquarters in New York, and I hope to continue to do that. So I try every year, to do that, to keep abreast. But that's also like again another spoke that has or another door that has been opened because of the MSCA ITN. And one thing that was interesting, I met this guy who was doing a peace PhD, but he was a data scientist. And that was so interesting to me. but at this time I was already finishing my PhD. So I said, what can I do? So I had this crazy idea, and because he thought it was a good idea too, he convinced me to actually go and do my MBA. So you can imagine, I already did my PhD. I went back, did my MBA in Spain on big data and business intelligence. So I guess the lesson here is that because of the Marie Curie fellows that you meet, they come from everywhere, and no idea is crazy enough that you can't do it. In fact, the crazier it is, the better, right? And you have people who are not shocked by the crazy ideas that you have. So instead of having like this straight path of having of being a social scientist, now I deal a lot with big data, with tech, in the work that I do, and even beyond that, I have like several passion projects because of this. So I finished that, and then I became part of the corporate world, but the foundation part. So I was part of Fundación Ceres in Madrid, and that also opened a lot. And then I met several Marie Curie fellows in Spain, and we still have like a lot of again passion projects together, and no topic, no theme is out of this world. We always believe that we live in a multiverse, right? So anything is possible, right, at any time. And yeah, and that really broadened my horizons. This is just an example of a blockchain conference that we did in Lyon, Spain, and it's just a question, an example of this. There's a term now that they use, this super transdisciplinarity, right? That it's not anymore that Madison is in the medical no biology, if I'm not mistaken, medicine, but also it intersects with social sciences, and then you have tech, and somehow you work together to try to make the world a better place. So I try as much as I can to be part of this young scientists network and speak in with. That's why I'm happy to speak with you, to share the ideas. And that's essentially what is the secret of mobility, right? The mobility that Marie Curie allows you. It opens like a lot of doors for you, but it also enriches you as a person, but you are also contributing to the world. You also give that part of knowledge that you have to the world. And that's a beautiful thing, because we need a lot of that. We need a lot of things to bring together. One other thing that I wanted to share is that because of the Marie Curie, we are also invited to, with policy dialogues with the EU delegations. I'm sure it's the same in Australia. I've done it in several countries in Asia, and also when I was in Europe, that you are invited with EU delegations when there are discussions on what to focus on or what societal problems to address. So, for example, in Madrid, we were part of a discussion on the Green Deal before, like years before it became the Green Deal as we had now. And in the Philippines, we had a discussion on resiliency, the disaster management, and also because of climate change. And there is one very important thing is you become a part of a very strong Marie Curie Alumni Association. I chair the Alumni Association in Southeast Asia, but you can be a member. It doesn't matter where you are from in the world. We gather every year. At the same time, there are working groups that really allow you to also get into like different topics. There are support groups as well. There's even like a mental health talk that we had like a couple of months ago. I mean, this is your an extension also of your network. These are your people. This is your tribe, and that's also the great thing about it. It's not just the science that you do, the research that you do, or the change making that you do, but you also become a community of people who can be there with you and to grow with you as a scientist and as a researcher. And so I've tried to speak like everywhere, with different kinds of audiences. Because of COVID-19, we tried to. This is by the way the group, the Marie Curie Alumni Association in Southeast Asia. Half of them are in Europe still, and half of them are in different parts of ASEAN. And we met virtually, and then now we are talking about issues that affect the research community, and also delving into innovation, and also how to elevate the science. One of the most important things that I think we discussed was on science diplomacy, which I think is, this time of the pandemic, is very, very important, right? How do we make sure that people trust the science? At the same time, how do we make sure that the science that is being created is also, understood by persons on the street, or more important, also to policymakers, right? How do we make these connections? So that's one of the things that we also continue to discuss. Talking about work-life balance, and this is the interesting part, because I was actually in Germany already, and then I applied for the ITN, and then so I moved to the UK, but then I got married, and then I got pregnant, and so I had my daughter in Europe. And the great thing about the Marie Curie is, and this is a concern for many people. They're afraid that if they go to another country, on the other side of the globe, you don't get that support. But in my case, I was able to get like the insurance, and even the insurance was transferred from the UK to Spain, because I had some time. I had to do field work in Spain, so the insurance that I actually had my daughter in Spain. I was employed in the UK, but I had my daughter in Barcelona, in Spain. And I was able to get like a 9-month maternity leave. And during the maternity leave, I got 90% of my salary. This is especially for women, but even for men, because parenting is really, it depends, what kind of family constellation that you have. But it was very helpful. So I was able to stop for a little bit but with support, to be a mom, and then to go back into it, and then later just continue where I have left off, but also still have that kind of support. And when it comes to research societal impact, as I said earlier, I tried to bring, peace building. The issues on peace is a very dynamic concept. So I try to share it, with the United Nations and with other international institutions, and try to also get deeper into the science and try to look at intersectionality when it comes to the science. And I think that's also one of the lessons of being a Marie Curie ITN. You are not limited to your course or limited to your field, but it encourages you to open your eyes and see what the intersections are, what the commonalities are. And I try to go back to the communities as well. I work a lot with the southern part of the Philippines, the Muslim communities, and also the indigenous communities, and try to also, try to have these conversations with them. And just recently, just wanted to share that we was very surprised actually to have been given the the Marie Curie Social Impact Award. But I really give it back to the Marie Curie, because it really allowed me, to have my crazy ideas, make them into a reality, and have people who believe that, you can, whatever science that you do, whatever research that you do, it's actually something that can enrich your life, but also you can make a difference in others. So I really feel that very strongly because of the Marie Curie experience. So from my 3 C's of chocolate, coffee, and the Carabao, as inspired by Marie Curie, I've changed it into 3 C's: competence, character, and courage. And if you become a part of the Marie Curie experience, I'm sure that you will have that as well. So just a shameless plug. I hope Nishant doesn't mind. We actually have a podcast with EURAXESS, and one of these days we're going to invite Nishant and Madison as well, if she's free. So if you go to Spotify and Apple, or wherever you get your podcast, please tune in to EURAXESS ASEAN Chat. There are also some tips, from Marie Curie Fellows, and also from ERC, from the ERC Fellows as well. So just in case, you're driving around or you're biking, as in the case of Madison, tune in and listen to more information about this. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nishant.
So please join me in thanking our speakers for today, Madison and Jenny. I'm sure our audience got a lot of useful insights from both of you. And we are optimistic that there will be an increased number of applications to Marie Curie related PhD opportunities from the region in 2021 and subsequently as well. Last but not least, as mentioned earlier, to keep an eye on our social media platforms to get notified of such informative webinars in the future. With that, we come to an end to today's session, and signing off for today and wishing you all a good week ahead. Thank you very much for joining in, and thank you from all of us.
Stay safe, everybody. Thank you, Nishant. Nice to meet you, Madison. Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you both as well. Bye.